The threat is there, so we will remain vigilant.
What Al Shabab is trying to do is to complete their morphing into a proper guerrilla force.
We're in Mogadishu, the capital of Somalia, which is a word that's become synonymous with war over the last 23 years because that's how long no government has controlled the entire territory of the country. That's something that the international community is trying to change. They spend $1 billion a year here supporting the federal government and their fight against Al Shabab, which is an affiliate of Al Qaeda. Over the last few months, the government's actually had a lot of success against the militant group, unlike it has in the past. So we've come here to see and learn more about their fight against Al Shabab.
Even though Somalia's hold on much of the country is still iffy, this may be the only conflict in the Muslim world today where international efforts have successfully put Islamist militants on the back foot.
The fight is being spearheaded by AMISOM, which is a grouping of African militaries that are mandated by the United Nations to be here. They are supposed to both support the Somali government, but also to prevent the violence in this failed state from spilling over into their countries.
When we arrived in Mogadishu, AMISOM and the Somali army had just taken over Al Shabab's last stronghold, a coastal town called Barawi. They took it without a fight because Al Shabab reportedly scattered when they heard troops were on their way.
This morning at 5 o'clock we advanced, and it took us only 30 minutes, actually 45 minutes to reach Barawi. We are now in Barawi, we have taken over Barawi. This specific field, the ground here, is the exact ground where Al Shabab used to conduct its execution. The execution of those they think we are going against the Sharia law.
When the soldiers moved into Barawi for the first time in over 2 decades, the governor came out onto the main square to get his hair cut, keeping a promise he'd made if he was ever able to set foot in the city. This is the first time that the youth of Barawi have ever seen government officials.
If any soldier of AMISOM and SNS steal your property, we shall kill him. AMISOM has come to make your children go to school, to make your wives get good treatment in hospitals.
The attack on Barawi has been long in the making. AMISOM and Somali forces had to push through another Al Shabab stronghold called Kuryuli back in March, just to open the road leading south. The United States has carried out at least 2 operations in Barawi since 2013. The first targeted Ikrima, the man thought to be the mastermind behind last year's Westgate shopping mall attack in Nairobi, Kenya, where 67 people were killed. American Navy SEALs attempted to raid Ikrima's coastal villa, but they were driven back after an exchange of gunfire and failed to get their man. But the second operation dealt a considerable blow to Al Shabab when U.S. airstrikes killed its charismatic leader, Ahmed Abdi Godani, in September.
This operation was a direct strike against the Al Shabab network, specifically the group's leader.
That dealt a major blow, and probably the organization after him is going to struggle to remain as a cohesive entity.
When the Somali government managed to regain control of Mogadishu 3 years ago, it marked a crucial turning point in the battle against Al Shabab.
dagaalka halka kan lagu yimid ama goobtan lagu qabsaday ilaa Darmooley ma ahayn dagaal iska yaaca ma ahayn, wuxuu ahaa dagaal istaraatiijigaas wuxuu ku dhisnaa inaanu meesha goobaha shacabka shabaab.
But as Somalia shores up key territory, Al Shabab has changed its strategy, relying more on guerrilla tactics that are harder for a conventional force like AMISOM to counter.
I mean, the fighting model really that they're now taking in the last 3 years is to move away from organized conventional groups into very small cells that can carry out hit-and-run attacks, suicide attacks, targeted assassinations, and so on. And they've done that with some success since the beginning of this year. They've killed 5 members of parliament, and there were a number of suicide bombings. They've attacked the presidential palace twice since the beginning of this year. They've attacked the high court once. They've attacked the parliament. all three branches of government. They've attacked the UN compound, they've attacked the Turkish embassy, all of that in this year.
These repeated successful attacks run counter to the image the Somali government is trying to present. We dropped in on the Prime Minister at a press conference where he was announcing the defeat of Al Shabab in Barawi.
Are you concerned that because Al Shabab have given up a lot of territory without a fight, that they're going to just regroup and then attack your forces and make it difficult to hold that territory?
We know the core Al Shabab will not give up until they are forced to give up. We will stay vigilant, and we are aware of these tactics that they will play.
Do you expect retaliation from Al Shabab for your latest push into their territory?
Well, we always expect Shabab responses and Shabab enmity.
You don't think they'll be able to muster a massive response, an attack on the capital or other areas that you've only recently taken over and not fortified?
What we know is their abilities to strike have significantly gone down. You know, these are people on the run. That doesn't mean that the threat is not there. The threat is there because there are cells, maybe sleeping cells in, you know, the vicinities of Mogadishu. So we will remain vigilant.
In addition to that threat, the Somali government faces the challenge of establishing a rule of law in Barawi, something that until very recently had been handled entirely by Al Shabab.
Al Shabab continues to offer better governance in the areas they control, despite the fact that they are exceptionally brutal. But as long as you don't challenge them politically, to live under them is not really horrendous as it may come to seem. Of course, if they convict you of adultery, they can stone you to death, which they have done numerously, and that's very brutal. But the fact of the matter is that compared to their rivals, they seem to govern better. I think the Somali government deserves some credit for defeating Al Shabab from major towns in Somalia. There are strong signs showing that this country is now recovering from 20-something years of fighting. And what we see right now is buildings all over the place. But also now there is a lot more international support for the Somali government.
That success is based on what appears to be progress in the war against Al Shabab. But Al Shabab may merely be changing.
Al Shabab has gone through an evolution. They started as a nationalist movement fighting against invasion of Ethiopia. After Ethiopia withdrew at the end of 2008, they ended up controlling the largest piece of land in Somalia, and then really evolving from a nationalist movement to more of a global jihadist movement, started to pledge allegiance to Al-Qaeda and to bin Laden. And that's when they started to also lose popular support among the Somali people.
Despite losing territory and support in Somalia, Al Shabab will remain an effective guerrilla force. With the Somali government still so dependent on the international community for economic and military support, Al Shabab is still no less a threat to the stability of Somalia.